Hello students, in our last video, we studied that plants are autotrophs and they prepare their own food using photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, plants in presence of sunlight use raw materials like water and carbon dioxide and prepare glucose. The unconsumed glucose is stored in the form of starch. The presence of starch in leaves is reliable evidence of photosynthesis. This is because starch formation requires photosynthesis. In our today's video, let us perform some activities which show chlorophyll, carbon dioxide, and sunlight are essential for photosynthesis. First, let's perform an experiment which shows that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. Students, let's take a potted plant with variegated leaves. For example, money plant or croton plant. Students, do you know the leaves which have more than one color, for example green or white, etc., are called variegated leaves? Most of the common plants have leaves which are totally green. But in plants like croton and money plants, leaves have more than one color. The green part of such leaves contains chlorophyll, but the white part does not contain chlorophyll. Now let's keep the plant in a dark room for 3 days so that all the starch gets used up. Also, no new starch can be made as there is no photosynthesis in the absence of light in the dark room. Thus, we have made the green part of leaves also starch-free. Students, we know that the white part of leaves also does not have starch. So now, the entire leaves become starch-free. Now, let's keep the plant in the sunlight for about 6 hours so that leaves can prepare glucose and convert the excess glucose into starch. Now, let's pluck a leaf from the plant. Do you see some green areas on the leaf? Let's mark the green areas on it and trace them on a sheet of paper. After marking the green areas, let's dip the leaf in boiling water for a few minutes, which kills the cells of the leaf, disrupts the cell membranes, and softens the cell walls. After this, we immerse the leaf in a beaker containing alcohol and carefully place the beaker in a water bath and heat it till the alcohol begins to boil. Have you ever thought about why we boil leaves in alcohol? Well, this is just to remove the chlorophyll present in the leaf, which in turn makes it easy for us to observe the color change after adding iodine. So after boiling, though the leaf becomes colorless, the starch continues to remain inside the leaf. Now let's dip the leaf in a dilute solution of iodine for a few minutes. Take out the leaf and rinse off the iodine solution. Do you observe any change in the colors of the leaf? Students, the leaf used in the experiment had green parts where the cells contain the chlorophyll and white parts where there is no chlorophyll. Students, you will see that only the parts that were green become blue or black with iodine solution. So what we can conclude about the presence of starch in various areas of the leaf? We can conclude that only the parts with chlorophyll make starch through the process of photosynthesis. The parts without chlorophyll do not perform photosynthesis, and so these parts do not have starch and the iodine does not change the color of these parts. This experiment proves that chlorophyll is required for photosynthesis. Now let's perform another experiment that shows that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Students, we already know that photosynthesis is the process by which plants use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create oxygen and energy in the form of glucose. Let us perform an activity to find out whether carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis or not. For this, we take 2 healthy potted plants which are nearly the same size. Now, we keep them in a dark room for 3 days. Do you know why we are keeping the plants in the dark? Students, plants are required to be kept in a dark room prior to the experiment to carry out the process of destarching. When a plant is kept in dark, it is unable to perform photosynthesis and cannot produce starch. In this condition, it derives its energy solely from the leftover starch in the plants, and thus plants get destarched. Now we place each plant on separate glass plates. We also place a watch glass containing potassium hydroxide by the side of one of the plants. The potassium hydroxide is used to absorb carbon dioxide and forms potassium carbonate and water. Now we cover both plants with separate bell jars. To make the setup airtight, we use Vaseline to seal the bottom of the jars to the glass plates. Now we keep the plants in sunlight for about 2 hours. Then we pluck a leaf from each of the plants and check for the presence of starch by iodine test. For this, we put the leaves in separate beakers containing alcohol. Then we put the beakers in a water bath which has hot boiling water. We observe that leaves become colorless as alcohol dissolves the chlorophyll present in leaves. Now we wash the leaves and test with iodine. Do both the leaves show the presence of starch? Students, we find that leaf A remains unchanged in iodine. Thus, starch is not present in it. This means that plant in jar A could not carry out photosynthesis in the absence of carbon dioxide, while leaf B gives blue color with iodine, which shows the presence of starch and which means that photosynthesis took place as carbon dioxide was present in jar B. What can we conclude from this activity? We can conclude that as potassium hydroxide was present in jar A, it absorbed all the carbon dioxide gas and hence plant could not carry out photosynthesis. But the plant in jar B could carry out photosynthesis as there was enough carbon dioxide to carry out photosynthesis. Thus, it proves that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Now, let's perform another experiment to see that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis or not. Students, we know that just like chlorophyll and carbon dioxide, sunlight is also necessary for photosynthesis. Let us prove this by an experiment. For this, we place a potted plant in a dark room for about 3 days so that all starch gets used up. Students, from the previous activity, you already know why we are keeping the plant in a dark room for 3 days. Now, we select one of its leaves and cover the whole leaf with black paper from the top and bottom. Here, we make sure that the whole leaf is covered on both sides so that sunlight is not available to the covered part of the leaf to carry out photosynthesis. Now, let's keep the potted plant in the bright sunlight for 4 to 6 hours. Now, we plug the covered leaf and another uncovered leaf and remove the black paper from the leaf. Now, we perform the iodine test to check the presence of starch in the leaves as we performed in the previous activities. After performing the iodine test, we observe that the covered leaf does not turn blue-black, whereas the uncovered leaf turns blue-black in color. What can we conclude from this activity? We conclude that the covered leaf shows no change in color as the starch could not be synthesized there because photosynthesis could not take place in the absence of sunlight, while the uncovered leaf could synthesize the starch because photosynthesis could take place as the sunlight was available for it. So students, this experiment proves that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. So in this video, we have experimentally proved that chlorophyll, carbon dioxide and sunlight are necessary for photosynthesis process. In our next video, we will learn about nutrition in unicellular organisms.